theory on Restream.
Man, that was like the longest plug session forever. So that's hopefully not all those plugs got fallen into the embers because I don't want to plug ever again.
This is interesting.
It looks like we're live on another one now.
Okay, we should be.
All right, hopefully people can hear me singing.
Oh, jeez Louise.
All right, I think we're back, guys. So I won't do all the plugs again, but quick shout out Fantasy Draft, shout out the giveaway right now on our pinned tweet on @Osborne_com, and let's talk about this goddamn slate. Let me put this link in here, live here. All right, done. Live here. All right, I've now linked all the other chats. I've done all I can do in the world.
All right, well, we appreciate that. I appreciate that. Here we go.
So let's talk about it because we got the plugs out of the way. EMAC is figuring out the production stuff as we go, but I think we're good. People did in fact hear me singing about the Lions tonight. Yes, the Lion does sleep tonight, guys. Sometimes you got to fill the air somehow when you're not sure if you're on the air. But we are here now. And EMAC, chalk play of the day today, a guy who I think we both liked the other day. I know we liked the Knicks a lot. Julius Randle, you put on the syllabus, of course, is one of your plays. I didn't go with him on the syllabus because I was like, well, EMAC got him, so I'll pick somebody else. My guy, Damian Lillard, did not do as well as that pick. But Randle, a great spot again, going to be a chalk play again. We'll talk about him. But his teammate, Alfred Payton, the chalk play of the day on DraftKings, a bit of a different value proposition for him on there than FanDuel. I know you're a DK player, EMAC. So what are you doing with Elf? Are you with the field, underneath it? How are you feeling about Elf in this spot here where I like him quite a bit again? I'll spoil it for you.
I will probably be slightly above the field there with Elf. I do like him. He is someone I feel rather strongly about. He did make it in the Cash Game Building Blocks article today as one of our better value plays. The main reason I like him is, well, one, he's starting, which should help him get to 28 to 30 minutes. Two, Dennis Smith Jr. is not in the picture. He has been ruled out, and RJ Barrett is also starting. So that leaves Alonzo Trier and Frankie Ntilikina as the backups. So we also have 9 games in now with the new coach. No more David Fizdale, and we have seen reasonable rotations. The one thing that has thrown some of the things off, and we talked about this heading into last game with Julius Randle, was some of the Knicks had coming into their last game had been involved in 3 blowouts. One, they destroyed Atlanta. The other 2, they got their ass kicked. So that was shaking up the rotations somewhat. So I think in a stable environment, which we should see against Brooklyn here, this should be a relatively at least a reasonable game. The Knicks are the Knicks, so it's not like they're going to win per se or anything like that. But I should say I don't see Brooklyn running away with this one. That to me means we'll see a little tighter rotation, which greatly benefits Alfred Payton. Throughout his career, we've seen him at many stops where he's been a very reasonable triple-double threat. Now, it doesn't mean he always gets there, but it's not a shock to see him get 40 or 50 fantasy points. I'm not calling for that today, but it just shows that he does contribute across the board a variety of ways. Rebounds are a little tougher to get for him on the Knicks because they have so many front court players that are actually mobile, but the assists are there. He can call his own shot, and those triple doubles are usually of the 12, 11, 12 variety. So it's not like they're great shakes, but all of a sudden you look up, he throws in a couple steals and he's hit 50 fantasy points. New York technically on the road here, but they are 7.5 point underdogs here. That we may not see that break out until late in the fourth quarter, but we know the NBA is a game of runs, which is something I always like to remind people of. And as long as those are kind of somewhat sequential, the games stay closer than we expect more often than not, and you don't get a true blowout. But Peyton is definitely in my plans. I also think Julius Randle is worthy of being a core play again as well today. Don't feel so confident about the 50 fantasy points. Feel he'll get to 40 with about 75% reasonable probability.
Yeah, he'll give up a little bit of usage with Morris back in the lineup. Randall on the year.
Oh, did we get that news? Sorry, we were waiting.
Yeah, he's back in. I don't know if that's official.
They're available.
No, he is starting. Yeah, that did come through officially finally.
There we go.
5 minutes ago, and also Taj Gibson back in the lineup too. So Mitchell Robinson should be going back to the bench there, but could be more productive off the bench. But to sum up the Knicks, yeah, I'm with you on all those takes. Like I think Alfred Payton. To me, the main benefit of Mike Miller being the coach right now is these rotations just aren't changing night to night, which is really the big issue with Fizdale, where you would have Elf, he'd have a good day, he'd have a game where he's not coming out hot, and all of a sudden Alonzo Trier or Damian Dotson or Frankie Smokes or anybody off the bench could come in and take minutes. Kadeem Allen, anybody could take minutes, willy-nilly from all over the place. It's a more constricted rotation, as Emac mentioned. It's just more reliable. So I've really been leaning on the Knicks more. They had a couple up and down games. For the most part, in spots that they can deliver, they do. And this Nets team does defend pretty well, but to me, that's not a limiting factor for guys like Elf and for Randall, who are still just too cheap for the roles they've had in this new look Knicks lineup, getting steadily, in Randall's case, the mid 30s minutes. For Elf, he's in the high 20s to the low 30s. He's got a 40% assist rate on the year. He's doing all the stuff you want to see Elf do. So not even scoring dependent in a meaningful way. Maybe the buckets don't fall and the assist rate falls off and he doesn't have the upside. He's had double-digit assists in his last 2 games, but I'm still willing to keep going there because these guys just aren't priced where they should be for what the Knicks are now, which is an actual NBA team that plays logically. And I think that's a pretty big benefit here. Emac, would you have any of Marcus Morris or RJ Barrett? Because these guys, I don't imagine I'll have a ton, but they project in range to me. And if you are going to have a lot of ownership going to Randall, though that has come down a bit throughout the day, but a lot of ownership going to Elf in particular, those guys could be pivots. So are you going to have any Randall or any Barrett or Marcus Morris?
Randall, yes. Morris, unlikely. I'll probably he'll be one of the guys I set myself less than the field. So just for perspective here, because hey, a lot of times I'm getting home from work right about now, so I'm just now making my player pools and projections. So what I generally use is I utilize Fantasy Cruncher and Osmo for all of that. I upload our individual player exposures, and then I go through about the top 20 or 25 and decide if I want to be over or above. Under or over the field. And then I also resort it by point per dollar and decide amongst those guys that may not have happened to fall out amongst the most popular plays if I want to be over or below. Morris, with coming off that sore Achilles and other issues that he has, I will be under tonight. If he was coming in fully healthy, he's always someone that tends to do better than we give him credit for, than our internal baseline, or at least mine is usually for him. I need to remember to elevate him in this particular Knicks situation a little bit more, at least until he and his brother decide to switch uniforms, and then the better player ends up on the Detroit team. So the other thing with RJ Barrett, I'm good with him. He's someone I'm okay with being above the field. I'll have to see where shooting guard comes in. I'm going very heavy on Shabazz Napier tonight. I don't think we have an updated and he's in one of the later games there, second to last game of the night, but he's someone, if healthy, I really want a lot of him tonight. So that could be causing me a little bit of let me rephrase that. It should. I'm watching our frames drop again, so we're
I think you're okay now, but I lost you for a second there too.
Okay, we should be all right, and we'll get this fixed. Chris and I haven't done a show where one of us was producing in a while, and we've changed our technology since then. But Chris and I haven't. There's a reason we changed that technology. But we'll just be happy we have a show tonight. Give thanks for that. In any event, the Knicks I do like. On the other side, I really only like Spencer Dinwiddie and Jared Allen. Those are the only 2 players I'm fired up for on the Brooklyn Nets. Garrett Temple is reasonable. I just never know when they're going to pull the rug out from under him. He is a veteran journeyman for a reason. He can be solid in short stints, but he is not someone that you want to count on regularly. And they've kind of been counting on him regularly, at least until they get Irving back.
I don't have as much of an issue in counting on. For a DFS purpose, I don't have an issue with counting on him, I guess, because he's been getting 30 minutes a game. So this kind of surprised me. He's been over 30 minutes in 10 of his last 11 games with no real appreciable downsides. The game that he was under was in the high 20s. On FanDuel, I think he's a much different equation. On DraftKings, his price is with Harris, with Tori and Prince. These guys are all kind of similar players. I think Harris is the guy I really like the most offensively, but they're all getting a similar slice of the pie basically for these guys. But on FanDuel, the price for Temple in particular is so cheap. And I know he was going to be one of the chalkier plays of the day earlier. I think he's come down a bit.
Small forward over there or shooting guard?
Let me just double check
because I do know I was doing the cheat sheet.
He's shooting guard.
Okay, I know small forward over there is kind of lacking options. I was covering the cheat sheets for Josh this morning and doing those. So, but shooting guard, FanDuel is just kind of a different animal because it forces you to play 2 of every position except for center. So sometimes you're making different choices. And on Yahoo and Fantasy Draft and DraftKings, you tend to be a little more relaxed because of the multi-position eligibility and or the utility spot. So with regards to Yahoo and his pricing, now that I'm pulling that up, I think he's fine there. Most of my stuff today I'll be looking at with the DraftKings fantasy draft lens for that scoring and those salary proportional salaries.
Yeah, so Temple, I would say on DraftKings, he's right at the range where I'd want to play. I have him for projected for 5x value, which is sort of in the hunt. And now Osmo a little bit better than that, but he's fine, just not a guy I would consider a necessary piece. But on FanDuel, all the Nets wings really are cheap enough to take stabs at. And I think having a mix there, if you were mass multi-entering lineups, I think would make sense. Usage-wise, I would probably favor Joe Harris out of the trio just because I think he's going to take the most looks and have the best chance at doing more and building on that against the Knicks team that defensively does play a little bit slower, but also not good defensively. But overall, Dinwiddie, as Emac mentioned, a strong play. Jarrett Allen, some risk with Jarrett Allen just because last game he lost minutes to DeAndre Jordan without foul trouble, which has been one of the things. Allen has gotten more minutes other than when he's had foul trouble. Last game, he did definitely just lost court time because Jordan was playing a lot better. Jordan closed that game out. So some risk still for both centers, but at the price point, I don't mind stabs on both guys. Overall, to me, this game just looks appealing. It's a battle of New York. We had the battle of Los Angeles yesterday. 2 cities that very near dear to my heart and places I've lived. And the one in New York, too, I think can be a viable situation for fantasy. And the ownership here, has kind of come down for the most part besides Alfred Payton. So some places to look. We did get a super chat as well a couple minutes ago from Eric Herman. Hello, friends. Can you help out a guy who plays single entry? Is it okay to play CP3, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and Schroeder? Just looking for some single lineup help. So I would be reluctant to do that, but on paper, there's no logical reason why. They do play minutes together. They are probably going to be in the closing group together with those 3 guys. So my personal lean right now is to go lower on Paul and to go higher on Shea and higher on Dennis Schroeder based upon the ownership, because I think people are willing to pay for Paul tonight. Paul hasn't gotten as big of a boost from Danilo Gallinari not being in the mix. So I think that does give him maybe less of an edge than people will think. So to me, I think that's one reason I would prefer to go to Shea and Schroeder, but I don't see an issue playing all 3. Emac, for a single entry, would you play all 3? Or maybe that's one way you get different.
Probably not. I would go 2 out of the 3, and it's the 2 that you referenced. Paul would be the 3rd one on there. I don't hate it. There are 12 teams in the player pool, but we do have a lot of guard options today. But so I think if we step back and said, if you're playing those 3 and you're not going with someone like Alfred Payton, you're doing you're creating a nice and unique lineup. If you're going for the sort of all or nothing approach, which I don't think is a bad way to approach single entry, you can definitely that is where the differentiation that it can come into play. With single entry, a lot of players tend to play their main lineup or their cash lineup. But we've seen, especially in basketball, those are not necessarily going to be the scores that get you anything better than a min cash. So looking for that differentiation is not a bad way to go. So thank you for letting us know that it's for single entry. I probably wouldn't, but I don't. If I saw someone playing those 3 against me, I wouldn't be doing cartwheels by any stretch, because I think they can all get there. And they're all reasonably priced. You got to say, all right, well, and we've seen enough games without Gallinari. So I'm just working through the thought process here. So Gallinari, is going to give up 14, 15 shots to everybody else, or those will need to be absorbed. Probably 10 of them go to the guards, I would guess, just because they are the better scorers. And then, Adams may get a bunny or a putback or something better just because there's one less big guy floating around the key and in the paint. And then I think I'm blanking on his name, that the small forward that's kind of
Basley? Darius
Basley? Basley. Oh boy. Yeah. So he's probably going to get some. I don't know what he's going to do with them, but I would think if the game is close, those 3 guards are 3 of their 4 best players on the court at any given time with today's matchup. So they should be the ones taking the shots. So again, walking through it that way, I don't think it's horrible. They're all going to be more scoring dependent though. They don't all rebounding is not another way for them to get there. Assists, sort of, but we know that assists are generally, a finite number. And if you go look at what a team's generally average for each game, that's their average for a reason, EMAC. But that's about where they get it. It's not like all of a sudden you're going to see each of those guys with 8 assists tonight. That means they have to not only pass it, but then you need one of them to be on the shooting end, making it. And that's not how basketball works.
Yeah, and I think to me too, one reason for just multiple players in this lineup in general to put them in one of your lineups, I think is fine for the Thunder because Memphis is a game, and I talked about this on the last show I did with Josh before he died of the flu,
before he went into a hyperbaric chamber.
Yes, I mean before he had to go into his vampire cocoon to try to heal himself. But I mentioned 2 games that I thought were really appealing on Monday's slate were the Cleveland game where just nobody was talking about that one, just the 2 teams with no defense, forget who they were playing, but also Memphis and San Antonio where nobody's talking about San Antonio. And granted, I certainly did not expect 65 Marcus Aldridge day along with 50 fantasy point day for DeMar DeRozan. And also in the game where DeRozan, I think, shot just 10 times. He got there mostly with assists. But Memphis is such a bad team defensively and logically and for good reason. We all target against Washington. Washington's a high-paced team that plays with really bad defense and also scores a lot offensively. Memphis doesn't score a lot offensively, but defensively, they give up just as much as Washington does. I mean, they're playing with one of the league's best paces at almost 106. Defensively, defensive efficiency rating of 110.3, and Washington's defensive efficiency rating is 114. So yeah, that's a 4-point difference per possession, but that's still a pretty bad number. So I think to me, I don't mind going a bunch of Thunder guys. I think I have a good amount of Steven Adams along with Paul, along with Shea, along with Schroeder, usually not 4 of those guys, but 3 of those guys. And, Basley can get there. I think Noel is an intriguing value on DraftKings on a night where there isn't much value. Maybe Adams picks up foul trouble and just sees a little bit less run. And Adams will be decently owned, I think, coming off of that big day he just had against the Clippers. So, and justifiably so, because he's a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy without Danilo Gallinari. But my point overall is just that this Thunder game is really appealing. And if you want to load up on more than not, I think people just don't think of the Thunder and this Memphis matchup the right way, which is that this is not the Memphis team of the past. It's not a good defensive team, and it's a team who plays fast. And for Oklahoma City, who's actually really good offensively, they just play slow. That's going to give them a benefit because they can score at a high clip. And we've seen them have pretty decent scores. I think they actually just put up 120 against Memphis a week ago. So the Thunder, to me, I feel are very underappreciated DFS-wise.
All right, well, premium Slack question here that I want to get to for SJM. Julius Randle and DeMar DeRozan or CP3 and Whiteside for fantasy draft cash. I am going to go with the first one here. I just think that their baseline is better all around. I think that both sides are going to project relatively evenly there. The one thing about Whiteside, now he's played dramatically different because he's been getting more opportunity, not the quick hook. And shocker of shockers, I was telling this to Eddie on our last show, he's getting the occasional assist, and he's closing games and actually passing, which is not something that we've seen from him, or at least he wanted to do for Coach Spoelstra. So even though he has all that, still a tougher matchup for him tonight, so I don't feel quite as confident. But one, Whiteside would be on my short list. I don't hate any of those 4 players. I would just go for that first pairing for a little bit more safety and what I think is achievable upside that's comparable to the second pair.
Yep, I think that's. Oh, actually, that was actually a double question apparently from SJM in that one, but I agree with your takes overall on Julius and DeMar DeRozan. I think that they're both fine plays who are especially decently priced on Fantasy Draft and DraftKings, which are kind of a similar salary ratio. So yeah, Whiteside I don't mind, and this matchup against Utah, I expect he'll be okay in the spot because he just keeps getting big minutes. They're putting him out in the high 30s of minutes, and one would think you'd want him out there alongside Rudy Gobert as long as you can stomach that. But I just don't feel comfortable playing Whiteside in cash with his price on the rise. I would rather go CP3 and I'd rather go Julius for those 2 individual either ors for SJM. Let's talk about another team, and we have some more questions in here. Morgan Smith asking the question I think we just touched on, but can you play Shea and CP3 on DraftKings? Yeah, I think it's fine to play all 3, and I think it's fine to play 2 out of the 3. But I would definitely err on the side of any of the 2 out of the 3, including Schroeder in that trio. That's sort of the way that we're viewing it. El Negro Loco also pointing out that Danilo Gallinari is going to be out at least 3 games, so prepare for your Basley futures. I guess fast to close the loop on the Thunder. Are you getting any Basley at all? Because I have a little bit, but I don't feel proud by any stretch.
Well, Yeah, he's going to be someone that comes into play for me because I need to be cognizant of where he is in my player pool, because that would be a direct pivot for Shabazz Napier in the event Napier is continuing to be out for illness. So I've got a rule set where I don't have them both on the same lineup, but I'm doing that only because I need the pivot there just in case Napier ends up being out. Where is Bosley is starting? What did we project him for minutes? What do we have Bosley in for?
We have him for, where'd he go? We have him for 25.
Okay, that's about where I thought. And what do we have, like 20 fantasy points?
Yeah, a little bit under 20. Well, 17. I have him at 18. Alex has him at 17.3.
Now, see, that's right in the range of Zvi. And
Who's going to be owned today?
Yeah, I don't want to go Zvi all the way home. So it's like my. I wanted to make sure.
You just little piggy me, Emac?
I did. It's the Geico commercial.
Okay. I was thinking more like Lil Jon Skeet Skeet Skeet. It's just a different thing entirely. But go on with your speed.
No. Oh, here's the blast from the past. Little Pig, Let Me In. Who said that was a song from the grunge days? I bet nobody in chat knows that one. That had Rambo in it and the Three Little Pigs. Something to do like Green Jello or something was the name of the band. I may be making that up, but sorry, I'm calling up I just want to make sure because now I know I'm safe if my lineups go
green jelly. People are saying in the YouTube chat.
Okay, if my lineups go sideways, I've got this set up for the late games here. Okay, so
a lot more people with you on this one, by the way, than I would have thought. So good job, YouTube chat. You guys get credit today. You guys are bringing your heat after Christmas with knowing Emacs references. My brain does not have that in me today. Let's bring
You've heard of Primus, right?
I'll take your word on it. That sounds right.
All right. Well,
okay. People want us. People are apoplectic that we haven't talked about the Wizards and the.
Oh, sure. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Let's keep going. Elroy Jenkins. Let's talk about his question first, I guess, because this is an important question people are going to ask. How do you project Troy Brown with Mccray back? So Troy Brown's going to be a weird one to project in general because you really only have one game, and we had this actually the exact same discussion point, Emac, the other day with Troy Brown and what we were guessing his ceiling to be, and I was a little more bullish on him being high 30s. You were like maybe low 30s. That seems like it's pushing it, and I felt like I was like I don't know, like high 30s seems really vulnerable. He of course goes for 52 fantasy points there with a well-rounded diet of assists, rebounds, and points. I think might have been a career high in regular life points as well. But Troy Brown doesn't project well for Osmo. I have him a little bit lesser projected than Osmo as well. And I think it's going to be hard to trust Troy Brown with his price on the way up. But I still have some exposure to him because if he plays like that, where he's assisting on a lot of plays, bumps the usage rate up, I think he's fine. But I do think with having more guys in the lineup, Jonathan Williams is going to more affect the bigs there than it is going to affect Troy Brown. But there's a trickle-down effect where I don't know that I trust the rotations we can see from these guys. Garrett Payton having a big day as well. Very different player, had a very low usage rate in that game. Mostly got there with assists, rebounds, and steals.
Yeah.
But rebounds in particular, he was rebounding like a monster, Garrett Payton was. But I think these are things that are all very fungible in the spot, which is a pace down against Detroit whose defense stinks. So you want guys who can score and fill up and just get buckets. I don't mind playing Brown, but I'm going to have some Mccray as well. And I think I have more Brown than Mccray right now. I have 10% Brown. I had 5% Mccray. So I'll be above the field on our most recent run with Troy Brown. But Emac, how are you handling Troy Brown and Mccray here? Are these guys playable to you? Do you feel like it's a bit of a sucker's bet to be paying the price up for him? Because I don't mind it. I just don't feel comfortable.
So on tonight's slate, 12 teams, I think it's okay for Brown, and also because of the matchup. They still need shooters. They got. I need to go look and see. I know they signed John Williams. Let me call that up. But what I wanted to say about Troy Brown, he had 7 assists in his last game. In the 4 prior to that, 0, 0, and then 4 and 2, I think, is what it was. So that's not great. And he'd been playing solid minutes. So he kind of lucked into those. I think you're looking at 25 to 30 fantasy points for Troy Brown. Now he's, 6,200 on DK. And I forget what he is on FanDuel. I believe he's still small forward on FanDuel. Let me call up FanDuel here, which would keep him in play there just because there's a dearth of options at the position. But Brown is not is not somebody I'm going to be very excited for. And he is small forward. Okay, so on FanDuel 5K, that's a very applicable price point. 6,200 on DK. I'd rather take my chances elsewhere. Doing some bargain shopping with some of the guys we've talked about already, which are not the greatest plays, and then buying or paying up elsewhere for some of my guys.
Yeah.
But we've got Gary Payton now. Shockingly, Googling John Williams was not the best return of information on Twitter.
You gotta go Jonathan. He's Jonathan with the H in front of the N. That'll give you the right.
Oh my God, Jonathan with the H in front of the N.
Yep. And he's a decent, like, he's 6'9". He's got some range. He's had some decent block days and rebounding days.
He played for one of the LA teams, I think.
Yeah, he was on the Lakers. He was part of their dumpster fire end of last year, where guys like Jamario Moon, or not Jamario Moon, was it Moon? Jamario, whatever his name was, had like 50 rebounds in a game. Where
Jamario Moon was the Detroit Piston, I think.
No,
now I'm getting Jonathan Williams, the running back.
Mario Davis, maybe.
Oh, that sounds more realistic.
Jamario Jones. My bad. Jamario Jones. That was him.
All right. Point being, there are more bodies around here for the Wizards. I think you saw an apex game there for Tori Brown, and to get us out of this, I'm not going back to tonight. I think he is absolutely fine as roster filler at 5,000 on FanDuel to get rid of one or to fill out one of those small forward spots. But on DK, I'm not very excited about him.
Yeah, so I don't mind taking the stab at Jordan Mccray. He's not a guy who's shown a ton of usage in the past. I mean, he's an okay shooter. I think the thing with Brown, the reason that he kind of tapped into the upside that EMAC mentioned, is that he was operating as the lead ball handler. He took minutes away from Ish Smith down the stretch. If he's going to do that again without Isaiah Thomas in there, he's going to have that value, kind of like what Bruce Brown did for the Pistons earlier in the year, which can be the case again today for him if you weren't as worried about his calf issues. But a guy who can spike that assist upside as long as there's nobody else in there who's going to dominate the ball. And I think that's what you want from Troy Brown. So again, I don't mind taking the stab. It just doesn't feel like one where if the field's not going to be there, you're going to be really exposed if he goes back to an older Troy Brown role where he's just kind of there doing a little bit here and there, and he loses minutes in that process as well. There's just risk for Troy Brown. So I wouldn't be comfortable with that risk at a high volume. But you know, if you're going to go 10%, even if you wanted to go 20% and get 5 times the field on his ownership on DraftKings, that's fine. It's just like, know your risk going in and know the fact that, like, very possible Jordan Mccray screws it up. Very possible that the moving pieces here just get weird, because it's going to get weird for Washington for a little bit.
I see a good question about Josh Kogi. Same thing with Culver. The point being, they haven't really gotten there in a while. It's terrifying if you go look at their game logs, and if you're counting on one of them to replace Shabazz Napier, that feels like more of a dice roll than it does going with Baisley on the Thunder. The Thunder game does start 2 hours before the Sacramento game, so we may not have word. If we're stuck going with a Kogi or Culver, I don't think I have a favorite between the two of them.
I have more Kogi today, but I don't really like. It's just because Alex hasn't projected better, and that kind of normalized with what I had him for. But yeah, like, I don't really see either of those guys having a ton of upside. It's not a slate where I'm really dying to force in the low owned value, or the cheap value is going to be however owned it may be, because I just don't know what you're paying for. Like, yeah, you want to pay for Andre Drummond. If you really like Luka, you can pay for him in this spot going against San Antonio, which not a bad matchup at all. Defensively, they're not good. Going to be a lower paced game, one would think, but I don't mind that. But do I need to pay up for Luka in this slate? I don't think you do. I think there are enough guys in that mid-price range where you can get there. If those guys have enough of a day, I think you can stack them up and get to where Luka might be if he has one of his better days. But I think that's sort of, you know, it's not a necessity on the slate. It's not like where you have Giannis against like Atlanta or somebody like that, where you're like, oh crap, if I miss out on this 90-point day and Giannis is cheap, I'm screwed. It's just not one of those slates where I'd be dying to force in the cheap value as much as you could. Braden, what's the best way to get player exposure? Just I use their projection would be one way to do it. But follow the ownership projections on the site, Braden. You are on the premium Slack, so use that if you just need a guide on how to expose people. And then if you like one guy more, just bump them up 5 or 10%. But there's no, if your question is what I'm thinking it is, that would be one way to put it in there. Bruce Brown officially available to play Thursday. EMAC, let's talk about the rest of these Pistons here, because we've kind of talked about the Washington side. Let's jump back to Bradley Beal in a second, but Bruce Brown, what are you doing with him? Are you getting him at all? Is he somebody that you want to get to? Because he's going to be under-owned now, and the calf issues are a bit of concern, but he has dominated when there hasn't been another point guard or lead ball handler in the backcourt.
I do not feel comfortable with the player having calf issues. Basketball involves running and jumping. That's your calf. and there are other places I'd rather go tonight for him. So for me, that's a risk. There are various times when I'm willing to take on more risk. This is not one of them. I've rolled the dice with sick players. You'll see me do some silly things with weather in NBA, or I mean in MLB. But the thing you need to remember in MLB is if you have a bad outing, there's no way to make that up. There is not a get lucky with a home run and your guy runs into it. If your guy is hurt or has a crappy subpar performance, it's very, very difficult to do much of anything. This is why a lot of us subscribe to the same theory that Alex Baker, you know him as Osmo, does, and we spread out the ownership, the projection, the player pool, etc., and we're hoping to find a lineup that will break free. So someone like that will not be one of my fringe plays. I will probably not have him in my player pool, and I rarely do that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of them just because it might be me nostalgically looking back on when he won us.
I had him 40% across the board in the last time he played, and he was healthy.
Yeah, so I mean, like,
it was not sexy, but
I'm not terribly worried about Tim Frazier taking the role away by any stretch. Like, Tim Frazier is just kind of a body who's out there getting minutes, and he's not a guy. He had really the keys to the castle last game and didn't quite do much with it. So I don't know that Tim Frazier's going to be a difference maker in what Bruce Brown does or doesn't do, but I agree with the calf issues. As Emac mentioned, as Dr. Emac mentioned, the calf is important to basketball. And I think that is one thing that weirdly has me more willing to go to Svi, I think, than going to like Tim Frazier, I guess, would be the way that I feel about it. That I think Svi's going to get some decent looks here, and he's had his okay days against tougher defenses than he's going to see in Washington. And Svi got 32 minutes last game, which I think is going to be what he's going to get without Kennard. So I'm okay going to Svi today as a value play, even though, again, I'm not dying for value. I'm going to be under the field on Svi. But in terms of the field being there, like, I get it. I think he's fine. Emac, are you with the field on Svi's projected 20% ownership on DraftKings?
No, he will be someone I'm around 5% on. Bad Svi experience. I had him on a show where I was with Eddie, and there was one 7:00 game, and I ended up with not getting my lineup exported in time, and I had 100% Svi. And this was when he moved into the starting lineup. I want to say he had 14 DK points. That was not good times. He does not accrue points if he's on the court. It's a problem. He does not accrue points if he's on the bench, but that's understandable. When you don't do it and you're on the court, that's a problem. So I want no part of Svi. And we've talked about a bunch about the Detroit guys. There's just a whole bunch of meh guys. We didn't get to Derrick Rose. I think Derrick Rose is an interesting situation here. He's appropriately priced. He's going to get 28 minutes, but I like him better than those other guys because he has a chance to get to 40 fantasy points. Much more than 40? No, not unless he's making all of his shots or lucks into 4 steals. But I like him better than those other guys, even on a point per dollar basis at a much higher salary. So for me, it's no Svi. But somehow I've now become the poster boy for Shabazz Napier because I've said his name like 50 times on this show. That does not feel good. If you're watching, this is not a sneaky play by me. This is all right. Let's try it with this guy because it hasn't worked with a bunch of other cheap guys previously. But to get for Shabazz Napier, I do like his matchup. Sacramento starting to play faster with De'Aaron Fox. They've gone up in the 4 games that De'Aaron Fox has played. They have 4 possessions more per game than their rolling 30-day average, which also includes those games. I just picked some arbitrary numbers, but I wanted to see what was happening. So that bodes well. I don't care whether Karl Anthony Towns is in or out tonight. I am fine with Napier. Ideally, Napier is starting, but that doesn't even end it for me there. I don't know why they're choosing to go to him instead of Jeff Teague. I think Jeff Teague is a better player. I know that Shabazz Napier has mucked around the league for a while. And he had plenty of time as the understudy to Damian Lillard in Portland, so it's not like he's some diamond in the rough, but at this moment, he seems to have the coach's eye, and I want to keep playing that with those minutes, and it's a great matchup. So that's how I've ended up on Shabazz Napier. I don't think Shabazz Napier is, wait for it, Ish Smith if he's lucky to have an Ish Smith career. That's my opinion.
I think Shabazz is a better shooter. I would disagree with the Shabazz take a little bit because I think he's actually not a bad player. And the thing that he does well is he can spot up, shoot, and he doesn't need to be as ball dominant as Teague does, which like Teague drops Wiggins' production because he just needs the ball in his hands more to be competent. Whereas Napier can kind of do the little things. He can like swing a pass more. He doesn't hold on to the ball for passing it and moving it around. So I think Napier, that's sort of what he brings in that lineup. So I like that too. And
how many years has this is a fun one. How many years has Napier been in the league?
7 or 8.
Okay, yeah, no, he has. So
he looks real young, but he's
28.
He came in out of high school, I think, or like just about.
Yeah, he went to UConn.
That's right. Yeah, but he played like 1 year, right? That's right. He was LeBron's guy. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, but yeah, no, he had 1 year and then came out, I think. So he's young and he's been around and. But I see in this spot against Sacramento, I'm not buying into the Sacramento pace up quite as much. Like I know it's 4 possessions and it has taken an uptick. And also one site that I use is inpredictable.com where you can check the how much teams are shooting into the shot clock each possession. And that is one thing too where they've taken an uptick. But the matchups too have been a little faster paced. And this one is as well. But I don't know that I'm buying as much that they're going to be like for Minnesota, I think it's still a pace down. And I think that's sort of the one thing I would exercise some caution with where like I don't want to load up on Sacramento because they're not a hideous defense, and also they are kind of fundamentally a little bit slower. Like they're not how they were last year. So that's just one thing I would say if you were going to load up on Minnesota. But I want to get back to Sacramento, but I just want to make sure we touch on everything for Detroit and Washington first because we did kind of jump around there.
No, and that's good. And I just went in and made sure my placeholder lineups, and then I'm going to stop interrupting you. I feel like.
No, it's all good. Bruce Brown.
We have 15 minutes left. I know I'm not going to get my uploads done in time, so I've just pulled everybody from that game. And I'm just going to play mostly without that game at this point.
Yeah, so Bruce Brown also, one thing to clarify, is not starting now, so that does give a little bit of concern. It is going to be Frazier, Snell, Svi, and Blake and Drummond starting there, so that could give a reason to move away from Brown anyway if you weren't thinking that way. But definitely not a time to load up on him because you just don't know what the minutes will be because of the calf issues, and now he's not starting. Wouldn't make Tim Frazier more appealing to me, just to be clear. I think he's fine if you want to take those stabs, but just doesn't get a lot of usage in this particular Pistons group. He's been there. He's had big days in the past. Not the same Pistons team where he's had the big days right now. And then Drummond, a guy who I think is appealing at his price point and a situation going against Washington. And one thing which I think I maybe worry about a little bit more than you probably should, but I think it does bear out enough. Like I like guys like Jonas Valanciunas in a spot against Oklahoma City because it's not a great defense and it's a team that does play a little bit slower. So, Memphis runs fast. He can get into position. He can do his damage on the boards. He's had these matchups for the last 4 games in a row and done well with them. I think the thing with Drummond is that at pace, he's not always in the best position to dominate in the way that you would think. He'll still get there. He'll still get you to where you want to get to in terms of a median projection. But I do wonder sometimes if you'll see that ceiling, and with his ownership where it is, I don't mind moving away from Drummond a little bit because if he gets you 50 fantasy points, you're not unhappy. But if he gets you 50 fantasy points, he just got you 5x on DraftKings. And I think that is one reason to be a little bit concerned with him in terms of just tournament approaches. Like if you want to match the field, that's fine. But that to me is why I am just with the field on Drummond. 25% ownership seemed about right to me. Kind of same thing for Bradley Beal, though I wish I had more Beal. I didn't get there naturally as much as I would have liked. But he had a 45% usage rate, I think actually 46% usage rate last game, which is his highest of the year. And that can change around a little bit because of the guys being in now, getting more bodies into the lineup, how that all flows around. Maybe Gary Payton feels more comfortable, bumps up his usage slightly more. It's where it all just kind of trickles down for Beal. But I think if I were to play for tournaments where the ownership is right now, I might be more inclined to go to Beal than Drummond. Emac, do you have a lean for that, Beal or Drummond, given that these guys are priced pretty comparably on most of the sites?
So, and this is a good one. So, and one I wanted to, So the reason I'm skipping on this game is I don't think there's that many of great players. And then on DraftKings, I also in my main lineup on the tiers contest, I have Andre Drummond in tier 1 and I've got him locked in. So I'm fine with that. I think Drummond going against the team with the worst rebounding rate in the league, which means that percentage-wise they allow the most share of rebounds, both offensive and defensive, to their opponents than they're getting themselves. That's what it means by having a bad rebound rate. It's a proportional thing, and they are last. I think that bodes well for Andre Drummond. We're really going to need Andre Drummond to have a 2020 game. Shout out to my buddy Dean78904. He called those the Barbara Walters special 2020s. I don't see him killing us tonight. The On the centers, the ownership is spread out enough that it's congregated enough on him that just by going to anybody else, you're going to differentiate yourself, particularly on FanDuel. And I don't think he's going to break anything for us. Bradley Beal, I feel, has a 60-65 point upside. I think he has about a realistic 50 fantasy point floor in most of the games until they get some more of their players back. That's not really going to kill us on this particular slate either. We don't have that. Neither one of these guys has the Westbrook triple-double upside, even with Harden upside, those other ones. So I don't think by moving away from this game, it's going to end your night by any stretch.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things with Beal. And, this is something, too, where I don't necessarily mind going to these guys just because you want the confidence in your lineup. And that's one reason I've talked about Brandon Ingram a lot on these streams. I like him pretty much every night because I know what he's going to get, and I do believe in the upside for the most part, even though his standard deviation numbers aren't the craziest. Like, he's a guy who can spike an upside. Beal's shooting 44% on the year, and he's shooting a lot. And if he's going to have a 46% usage rate, and he's also been shooting kind of poorly relative to that, like, he can definitely have those days. One of his best days of the year was against Minnesota earlier in the year, another team who doesn't play great defense like Detroit, but a higher pace situation. But he had, I think, almost 70 fantasy points in that one, but also shot the lights out. He missed like 5 shots out of 25. That's sort of where you get Beal's upside from. Drummond's upside can just come from Washington sucking and just missing more shots and putting more rebounds up in the air. And I think that's sort of why I think there's real arguments for both guys. And I would probably, with the ownership going towards Drummond now, I would err on the side of Beal because I think people are just expecting Beal to be the guy who gets you 50. But he does have 70-point upside, and he's shown it. And I think that's one thing to keep in mind when you are trying these guys out. I think closer to an even split than I actually got with my crunches would be a wiser move for those guys. Let's jump over this game in Sacramento because we talked about it a little bit, but there are a couple guys here to hit on fast. Emac, what are you doing with Marvin Bagley? Because Alex has him projected really well throughout the day, but his minutes to me don't seem as secure as maybe what we have him projected for. We have him going for 28 minutes. And last time he just didn't see the court. Minutes went to a Trevor Ariza, and that was a weird spot against Houston where you can make an argument Bagley defensively just shouldn't be out there. So I get that. Bagley gets to high 20s minutes. He should be in a smash spot against Minnesota. So what are you doing with Bagley here? Do you think he's going to get the run? Are you trusting him with ownership rising industry-wide?
I have irrational love for the Sacramento Kings because, I can only root for bad teams for the NBA since my Seattle Supersonics are never coming back. But the Wizards annoyed the hell out of me enough that I had to pick a second team. And it was the Kings. And boy, that was a lot of fun last year. This year, not as much. Injury bug has gobsmacked them as well. They also have Rashawn Holmes now. That changes things in their front court. They're also willing to play Nemanja Bjelica in the front court. Wait for it. And they have new coach, Luke Walton. This is a recipe for disaster because we really don't know what's going to be happening. I think Bagley is the most talented amongst those guys. I think he should be getting the most minutes amongst those guys. But if they're trying to win games, and I don't know what they're trying to do or not do because I don't know that Luke Walton knows that, I would play the other two first, which causes conundrum and issues. Ideally, Bogdan Bogdanovic is not in this game. That leaves a few more minutes around or one less player that Walton can screw around with. But the price tag on Beal has me interested in him. I believe in the cheat sheets, I put all three on most sites. I put all three of their front court players in. I wouldn't want more of them on one team or one roster, but I think all three are very viable for their price points and this particular matchup. To me, it doesn't matter if Towns is in or out. I just think this is a good matchup. Towns doesn't play defense, and while he gets rebounds, he doesn't really impact those around him or the opposition for said rebounds. So for me, he's not really a direct impact on it, but I wouldn't want to play more than one of those guys on the team. And since I'm now twiddling my thumbs because I'm not going to worry about setting my lineups before the 7:30 game, I will be setting a rule for that.
Yeah, I agree. Like the Kings to me look really interesting overall. And actually, I think it was actually, I think it might've been with you the other day, but like I played a lot of Kings against Houston and I had a lot of Fox who went nuts. He had over 50 fantasy points. I also had a lot of Buddy Hield in those same lineups, which
we talked about this. You had a little more confidence in Hield than I do. I think he is their best player personally. And I would not have thought I was going to say that. I think the other guys coming back have really impacted him the most from a usage, a change in rotation. They'll get it figured out. He was phenomenal down the stretch last year. I mean, he had for the love of God, a breakout season. I haven't looked recently, but he still should be amongst the top 5 in 3-point attempts per game. It's just all the other little things are not really available for him with Fox back. He's not getting as many assists with the rebounders back. He's not getting as many rebounds, etc. They'll figure it out. They'll work it out. And I think they're going to run a tighter rotation once they do. I mean, they've already said, yeah, Dwayne Dedmon, I know we paid you all this money, but yeah, you're just going to get DNPs now. Foolish way to use your assets, but that's what they've decided to do. So I'm okay with Buddy Hield tonight. I will go back to Buddy Hield. And he's probably my favorite player up next to De'Aaron Fox on this team. I don't feel confident right now just because there's enough other uncertainty, and he's not priced for said uncertainty. He's priced for still playing without those guys.
He's priced for the worst version of himself this year, because I feel like in this spot last year, he was a 7K to 8K guy. And granted, he shot better last year, so that's a part of it. But so I'm double the field on Hield again, just because I think this is what I'm going to do. This is going to be one of the things I'm just going to die on this hill for the next week. But Hield's still shooting enough. He's getting enough looks. He just ends up cold. And he also talked to the media about he's not getting the same looks because they think, I forget what it was. He's like, he wants to get more pick and pop looks, but he's not getting quite as much as he wanted to. He's having to create his own shot more. I mean, Fox being in the mix, now that Fox is getting more accustomed, he kind of had his big usage day last time out. I think he's going to start to set Hield up a little bit more. So I'm back on Hield tonight. I hate it. I don't want it. He killed so many good lineups of mine last time out, but this matchup is even better than the one against Houston. Similarly bad defense, actually a worse defense, but more pace, or at least the same amount of pace. Like, it's a really good spot for Hield to get this shot again. Worries me, as Emac mentioned, having Bogdan back in the lineup scares you. They ran an 8-man rotation last game, which will probably go to 9 now, but Trevor Ariza can also take minutes away from these guys in the front court and Hield. So there's some ways it can get weird, but I'll keep playing Hield right now because I think his price is at a spot where if he does get you to the 45 fantasy points, if he has that big scoring day, it's all it takes is him to just score more than he has been. It's going to be one that'll pay off. And full disclosure, that is one that I'm heavy on again, which I'll just keep doing it, I guess. What can you do? EMAC, what else have we gotten or have we not hit on so far that you feel like may be important to the people?
So Hield is tier 6 on the DK tiers. He is my number 1 ranked play, as he is with Osmo. So I have him on 60% of my tiers contests. Just for comparison there.
Okay, so I want to get anything else that might have popped up in your crunches as you're doing it, but I guess you're not sorting them anyway. So let's just go through some questions.
Yep.
Elroy Jenkins asking thoughts on Holmes on DK with Bagley seeing an increased role. I think Holmes' minutes are actually more secure than Bagley's right now. So I prefer Holmes. Like, he's not as good of a price, so that's the one thing. But Holmes to me seems pretty rock solid. His minutes have actually gone up because he's now playing court time with Bagley. So I think I'm fine.
They're trying to work Bagley in at the 4 and the 5, and it's just a mess. So ideally, we get less Trevor Ariza, because why not pay somebody that's been around for a million years and play them? Ariza. Was Ariza back there in the Laker days with Walton?
Yeah,
I should go look at that, because that all of a sudden makes sense as to why Ariza might be getting minutes. And I like Ariza. He's a much better real basketball player than fantasy basketball player. This is just not the team for him to be. He should be on a playoff squad. I would agree with you. I think amongst the current front court, it's Holmes from a fantasy perspective right now. And then it's a toss-up between Bagley and Bjelica. I think in this game, I think it's truly a tie between those second two based on where their prices are. Normally, I would want to lean towards Bagley if at all possible. That seems to be what everybody wants to do. So then you start looking at ownership next. And to me, that would get me to Bjelica. But today, I think it truly is a tie.
And also, Kick's good pointing out in the premium Slack, or not the premium Slack, in the YouTube chat. What about Bjelica Revenge? That wouldn't factor in for me as much. They just have too many bodies. But if you want to play that angle, I mean, I do have him projected. We also has him projected for 24 minutes. That would give him just enough value to be playable. So definitely possibly spikes it upside and steals minutes away. But now that's the thing, though, is like you can steal minutes away from guys and lose minutes to these other pieces. And that's, it's a bit of a risk profile for a guy like Bjelica, who's just not the highest priority guy to keep giving work. Like, he might be the best.
I am now banning revenge games. We're not going to speak of them. They are remember me games, or they are he is familiar with the shooting backdrop. So tonight, Nemanja Bjelica is familiar with the shooting backdrop. Oh no, I guess that wouldn't work because it's in San Francisco, or it's in Sacramento. So yeah, no revenge. Sorry.
Fair enough. We did get a premium super chat. Actually, I keep mixing up the chats. A super chat from Eric Herman, I believe, who gave us the one earlier. He had a follow-up question. Rank your 3 top your 3 top forwards for DK. It's a little late for that, so my bad. But we had lots of hit on throughout the slate.
Okay. None of mine are in the first game, so
yeah, I'll give mine. Mine would probably be Randall. I guess Bagley in terms of the ownership I had. And Buddy Stupid healed. He's my 3 on DraftKings. Emac would be your 3.
Randall, Aldridge, and then it's a tie between 2 teammates on Utah. That would be Joe Ingles, and Bojan Bogdanovic.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I'm just trying to see what they're. So Bojan, I didn't upload our. Bojan's what, about 12% popularity, and then. Where is Ingles? God, Ingles isn't even that high. Ingles is 7. Ingles is he on my main lineup. He beat out Buddy Hield in DraftKings tier 6. Buddy Hield is on more of my lineups, but my main cash lineup and 3-man lineup, I went with Ingles. I think those guys are going completely overlooked today. I think this is a good matchup for both of them. I'm not worried that Jordan Clarkson is entering the mix now. And I think this is a situation where most of the field, as we've seen by their popularity, is going to be off those 2. So if you're playing late slates or like me, just now going to build your lineups, look to those Utah guys.
Also, people in the YouTube chat apparently talking a lot about Jordan Clarkson also being toxic. Why, guys? It's fucking Christmas. Like, you have to be shitty. It's the day after Christmas. Be positive for once in your goddamn life, Jason Bishop. But everybody
I haven't banned anybody yet today. Can we ban somebody?
No, it's nobody that bad. It's just like yes, I was thinking of Sebastian Telfair. We were talking about Shabazz Napier. It doesn't change the player. It's a day after Christmas and my head hurts. That's the reasons these things happen. Try our best. But anyway, there was a question here about Jordan Clarkson. So Jordan Clarkson, I think if you're projecting him based upon his Cleveland role, I don't mind him at his price point. It's just you don't know what you're going to get. If he's picking up Jeff Green's vacated minutes, like Exum didn't have any minutes left behind, so you're really kind of looking for a narrow range of outcomes. I don't mind it at his price point, and he can certainly show up big in his first game at Utah. I'm sure he's excited to be in Utah after being in LA and being in Cleveland and all that, and steadily going down in terms of these city tiers. But yeah, like I just don't see the reason to go to Clarkson tonight at much volume. 5% for him with the field seems about right to me. Like there's a lot of risk. But Emac, did you get any Clarkson?
I will not be playing Clarkson. I think let me rephrase that. On the late slate, if he's in the player pool, I will. I won't on the 2-game late slate. On the main slate, I won't. Hey, I'm just gonna go push a button and play my lineups according to YouTube chat here. All I can say is if that's how easy it is, you should definitely join Osmo. You should definitely get the projections and the Fantasy Cruncher add-ons, and then you should just print money. Clearly, that's the way to go. So for everybody that says that, I'm not going to name names, but for everybody that says that, why are you not doing it?
It's true.
There was a whole thread about this on Odo Einders, talking about optimizers and plays and cash games and all of this. Guys, if it was so easy, wouldn't everybody be doing it? Yes. Is everybody doing it? No. I used to hate it too. I've changed so to be uppy. I've reinvented the way I've played over the last 2 seasons. I have seen the writing on the wall, and there's definitely ways you can carve out a fun time here on Daily Fantasy Sports and not have to redeposit. And I've had 1 losing season since 2011, Chris. It was 3 years ago. I'm having my best season in 5 years. I am applying the principles of Osmo. Yes, I'm utilizing the ability to play in sub $5 games on DraftKings and FanDuel because that's where the mega mass multi-entry people are not. And you can do this, and you can use the tools, and you can emulate what Alex is doing and what Adam and what Laffy and what Jake and what Josh are doing, and you can have great success here. There's a lot to learn. The office hours are phenomenal. Getting the behind-the-scenes show every day from Alex and how he starts to build his and shape his player pool is phenomenal for basketball. And I highly recommend you guys do it because you can actually not have to redeposit. I haven't redeposited in 7 years. That's pretty good. I've moved money from one site to the other, but I haven't redeposited.
And I'm sure a site like Fantasy Draft with no rake would help you even more, Emac, to accomplish that goal. But it is an important part. I mean, we talk about some of see ways to balance your bankroll and all that. Cash games can be an important part of that. For me, that's I'm not doing it as much this year because I just frankly don't have the time with all the content we're putting out. But last year, a big way that I just made enough money every single night to play these tournaments was just using the ownership projections we have at Osmo, basically fading the chalk plays that I just thought were absolute garbage and just going with guys who I felt more confident in. And that's one way to do it, really. If you want to build decent cash game lineups to fund that, that's one way to be smart about it. But also just not paying rake on your site is going to help out quite a bit. And that's what you can do at fantasydraft.com. If you use the promo code AWESEMO, go over there right now, get your free 7-day trial, and all the contest entry fees go right to the winners, which is an important part of that process. So go check it out. And EMAC, I think even though there's no Eddie, and even though we are exhausted mentally from the holiday, we should do one round of Daddy Likes.
Let's look. Are you pulling it up, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I got it. Right.
And for chat, yes, I hope Eddie's back. I wish he was here too, and I hope he's with me this weekend. But he is taking a well-deserved vacation, and he is south of the border. We'll have to see what his internet access is like. But he has said he will do his best. And in prior years, on this same vacation, he has been able to do some of his shows. So ideally, he is here on Saturday and Sunday with me. If not, well, it could be the corpse of Josh Engelman.
It could be, he could be the bloated Josh Engelman corpse popping up in any minute. But I believe EMAC will, or not EMAC. I believe that Eddie will be here with EMAC because it's one of his goals. He wanted to do wanted to get his internet set up wherever he's located in Mexico, but he's traveling today, so that's the reason why Eddie couldn't make it. So we're doing the best we can to get through it, but we do have the ownership. And EMAC, you want to give your guess as to who's the number one owned guy is going to be?
Number one owned guy tonight is Andre Drummond at 22%.
Andre Drummond at 30%, but you got the guy. That's the big part, but a little bit higher ownership for Drummond. But again, if I think there is some, I wouldn't say risk. I just think there's some tournament appeal to go away from. I think that's probably the best way to put it, where if he gets you 50 fantasy points, great day. Like who's going to be mad at that? But if he gets you 50 and Adams and Joe Val give you 40 each, like that's a weird day. It's a different day than I think the field was looking at it, but we'll see. Bradley Beal at 16%. I would like that if I got more than him. I'm actually just with the field on Beal, a little bit under at 13. EMAC, what'd you get with Bradley Beal? Or what are you feeling with Bradley Beal?
0. I would think if I was playing the full slate and I would have been more relaxed and not saying, hey, I'm joining Chris 10 minutes before we go on air, I would have had about 17%. I wouldn't have gone for this game. I wouldn't have gone 0 if I was able to realistically put my lineups together. But there was nobody enticing. I would have gone about 17 with Beal. I probably would have stayed at about 20 with Drummond. I think Drummond is very fine for a cash game. I liked Drummond's upside, but there are other ways I'd rather go. Because I think a good game from Drummond could end up being 48 points tonight, and they don't need fantasy points, and they don't need more than that, Chris. So capping the upside is a little bit of an issue, and you alluded to that before. Where did Zvi end up? I wouldn't have gone more than 5 or 10.
So Zvi is now number 3 at 12%, and I feel like that's fine. Like that's not as crazy of a stab as I thought when we had the ownership going up to 20. Like that's bad if we undershot that and he was at 30, then it would be bad. But no, at 11 to 12, like that's who cares? It's not going to kill you. So Zvi, fine, why not? Jordan Mccray at 12% as well. I actually think I would go Zvi over Mccray just because I don't know what we're getting with his weird minutes limit, even though it's a hand injury. But EMAC Mccray at 12%, does that do anything for you?
No, I don't think it's bad. I think he should be capable of playing 20-25 minutes. But he's another person, and he's a better offensive player, but he was somebody before he got hurt. I was saying I heard the Wizards because I watch the Wizards because they're the local game, and they usually are early. So if I'm watching, I'm going to watch that one before I go over to League Pass. And the announcers at different times have said, "Oh, we need to get Jordan Mccray in here for his offense," and "Oh, we need to get Jordan Mccray in here for his defense." I think neither statement is true.
True,
but relatively discounted. He was off everybody's radar. We're talking reasonable for him, a point per minute in 25 minutes. So does 25 points get you there? If it doesn't make you exciting, then he wasn't the play to go to.
Yeah, and I think in terms of value, guys, like if this is where all the cheap guys kind of shake out in that 10 to 15% range, that's to me is the kind of risk I don't mind taking for a cheap, and you're not really overloading up. And if you went 50% Zvi or 50% Jordan Mccray, that's just not the smart way to play it. But if you're doing that, it opens some stuff up for you. And You're not getting very different, but whatever. Let's just burn through the rest. Derrick Rose, 10%. Troy Brown at 8%. So people were not taking that leap, and I think that's why it's going to suck if he goes nuts and you were just with the field, but that was the safer and probably more logical play because of just how that can all get sideways there. Gary Payton at 7%. Jan Mahinmi, who somebody asked about and I didn't get to the question. So I think that was Ryan in the premium Slack. So sorry, Ryan, but 6% for Jan Mahinmi. And he's fine to me, but like he's not a great value at this point. And there are better center values. Emac, would you have felt anything for Mahinmi today?
No, he did make it because there wasn't any. He made it on the cheat sheets just because on a couple of sites there wasn't a just pure punt center. Mm-hmm. But that's because I think he's going to play 20 to 24 minutes. They need his size against Drummond, but even then he's outsized. They just don't have anybody else that can play the pivot. But even in these situations, we haven't seen Mahinmi get there. He is really playing 20 to 25 minutes and scoring, 20 to 28 fantasy points. That's not very exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, it's possible too, like Poshniks and Jonathan Williams in there. Those are two big bodies who can play nominal center roles, and maybe that cuts into Mahinmi's load a little bit more. They do seem to trust him the most out of that trio. I just wouldn't feel comfortable with him with his price up. If you're in the 3K range still.
Yeah. And I wouldn't hate playing him because he does open up a lot of other things, and it's an immediate pivot away from Drummond and away from, Gobert and away from some of the other guys. So from a tournament perspective, if someone was playing Mahinmi against me, I wouldn't be doing cartwheels. I'd be like, well, all right, what else did they upgrade that I didn't upgrade? And you go from there. So it's more of a full lineup look. Chat's asking I see we have if you want to come work for us, you can. I know we've got some internships available, and if you are good at sports that we don't have a lot of coverage on, that's how you break into the industry. careers@awesemo.com would be a place to send in a writing sample. If Chris, because you've done writing for a long time, as have I. It's hard to do. It's hard to do it every day, and daily fantasy sports is an incredible grind because as soon as the slate locks, I already got to start thinking about tomorrow's article. Great, I'm going to do 1,200 words on something. You're going to be doing 2,800 words on something. And then you got NFL and you got all this, so it's a never-ending churn. You can never just sit back and hey, I wrote a great article, because it disappears and we're on to the next thing. It's not like people go back and read your stuff. So it's a different kind of writing than anything else. But we do have opportunities here. If you think you are a writer, I'm going to tell you, to 99% of you, you're not. But if you think you are a writer, then write a blog, write a bunch of stuff, break down the slates, write up, just do it for practice and see what you have. Then send that type of stuff in, and we'll definitely look at it. I've probably reviewed at the different, working for 4 sites now, I've probably reviewed, I don't know, submissions from 300, 400 potential writers. I think I've recommended 3. It's a tough way to break in, so I just want to set everybody's expectations correctly. The other thing that's really, but then look at a phenomenal guy like Sal Vetri. He's come on and done some amazing stuff. You know how he did it? I was talking to him about this after the show we did together. A lot of it came in on WNBA. That's how he got his traction. And I'll share this. He had talked with some other luminaries, Pat Mayos and those kind of people, and said, hey, what would you consider doing? And they all to a person said this exact same thing I said. Don't come in on one of the main 4 sports. There's not going to be room for it. If you are dependable, and if we can count on you to slog through some of the other stuff, the second there's somebody sick, somebody missing, somebody whatever, you're going to get that shot because you're already there and you're a proven commodity. That's how you get your foot into the DFS world and or any other content writing world. Yeah,
or you could just do it for 10 years like I have and then switch over to the DFS.
But you had a background and a huge portfolio, which most of the people saying in chat, I want to work for you. Great. Do you know how long it takes? Your hourly rate is going to work out somewhere to between $8 and $12 an hour. It's not exciting, and you're only going to hear complaints. You still want to do it.
Yeah, no, it's a grind. I mean, like you could tell, like, honestly, sometimes this is why I get short with the chats for like sometimes when something just hits a nose or hits you on the nose, because it's just like why today? Like, it's so hard. You work so hard to do it. And that's, it's great. Like, it's fun. It's still more fun than covering financial news every day or something like that. But it is a grind. And that's the thing for me, as somebody who's made websites for years, a lot. When I made my first website and it started doing well, a site called Guyism, which is best known for bringing ESPN's Katie Nolan to the public sphere and not anything else anymore. But that's like basically the grind is just doing it every day, showing up every day, having 5 to 10 things you're writing about, finding new ways to talk about it, getting eyes on it. That's all the hard stuff. And that's the stuff that people miss every day. So if you do your own thing like Sal, really a person I admire, I doing On the Contrary with him on Saturday because we have no Alex. And he's going to be doing well for himself because he just built himself up and did a good job doing it. So that's the best way to do it is if you Lamar, if you
I have another full-time job. That's what a lot of people are asking. Yeah, no, I have a full-time, very lovely, lucrative job. One, I'm a workaholic, and two, this is my creative outlet. I don't paint, play music, etc. But I'm a pretty good writer, and I'm at least entertaining and knowledgeable. Can turn complex things into digestible analysis and make you have a little bit of entertainment and fun while I'm doing it. That's how I've been able to stay on there.
Yeah, I mean, look, you have to do it because you love it, and I think that's the first part of it is just being able to do it every day. Another guy who I think does a good job with the Reddit stuff. I mean, our own Josh did that as well, but Bathrobe DFS, a guy who's built up his own little profile, not somebody we work with at Osmo, but a guy who has followed our Osmo content before and helped and kind of taken the lessons that we've had to build his own little brand. There are ways to do it, so that's. Those are the things that I would consider, like EMAC mentioned. The first thing, though, is just doing it yourself and putting together those samples and putting together your site or whatever, even if it's just a temporary WordPress site. Just build yourself a portfolio, show that you can do it every day, show yourself you can do it every day, because there are a lot of people get to 2 days, 3 days, even a week or 2 weeks of it, and then you just can't keep doing it every day. That's a big part of the process for anything in content is just sticking with it and continuing to do it. So that's that. Let's see. Anything else that we need to hit on? I know you got to do your lineups, but I just want to make sure we got everything.
Yeah, I really probably should. Wait, what's the 7:30 game? Is that when I'm gonna play? It's New York, so I'm gonna I'm gonna have Randall and Payton. And somebody just asked would I do Payton or I didn't see the other one was one of the Thunder guards, I think. So I would play Payton. He would be my preferred choice. He was in the cash game building box article today as my second favorite player.
And just for the record, I don't make $12 an hour. Because you want to clarify that, but
that's fair. Some people, there are a handful of people that can make a living wage doing this, and then there's everybody else.
And less by the year, which is the thing for every content job. I mean, that's the thing that. And why too, like being like Sal and doing that approach of building your own thing independently. Like it's great if you can get onto the radar of a site like Osmo or some of our competitors who are actually good companies and do a good job recruiting and bringing talent in. But, a lot of it is just being willing to do that grind and doing whatever it takes. And if you're making $12 an hour as a freelancer, like it's better than the alternatives from a couple years ago where you were getting paid jack shit. You're getting $0 from a content site just to get your bylines on there. That sucks. So just, be prepared for the worst and just grind. Just always keep grinding. That's why when you see exhaustion in my eyes, guys at home right now, that's because we are grinding here. We've been grinding hard for the entire NFL and NBA seasons.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's get on out of here.
Yeah, let's go hit that like button before we go, guys. We appreciate it. Obviously, we're all here trying to do the same thing, trying to play some DFS tournaments after Christmas. So show a little love, be positive, not just to us, be positive to other people in your lives, because that's all this is about, especially as we head into a new year. It's your chance to turn over a new leaf. So let's all carry that energy moving forward into 2020. And of course, go check out Fantasy Draft, where it's hard to not be positive when you're not paying rake on a DFS site, EMAC. That's what I always say. So go to Fantasy. In my Nana voice, I always love to say that's an important part of playing DFS. I just talk in that annoying voice. People don't like me talking fast. I'll just talk like a Nana. But go check out fantasydraft.com and use the promo code AWESOMO for your free 7-day trial and your entry into the world of rake-free DFS. And also go to awesemo.com/join and use the promo code live before lock for half off your first week of any membership we have on there. It's a good time to do it. We'll have a ton of NBA content still going on. It's the holidays. If you have some downtime, take advantage of that deal right now and get in there.
Oh, with perfect timing, I think I lost Spag. So wrapping this up, we will say there are developer jobs, content jobs, and social media jobs as well available on awesemo.com. Check it out. So if you have, and those pay more than $12 an hour, the developer jobs, etc. They pay a competitive wage. But with